...1987, I was living in with a good friend of mine, Paul Lightfoot, and his wife in Richmond Road in Grey Lynn. I had a little, kind of bed sit out the back of their house, and I'd had this big fight with my girlfriend, Rebecca, her name was, and she took off. It was like, she kind of disappeared for a few days, and I knew I was in big trouble, So I thought, I can't be bothered with it, I can't be bothered with the fallout of this. What I'll do is I'll write her a really nice song and play it to her when she gets back. So that's kind of where Nobody Else came from. And I wrote the music really quickly. It was a country song, actually. It was actually a country song. And I wrote the music really quickly. And I remember I wrote it, and I had a little 4-track recorder. I always had a 4-track on hand to capture these demos of songs and ideas and stuff. And I worked on the musical side of stuff, put a drum beat down, and the guitar was always very strong, the little guitar bits that I play. And I didn't quite have the melody. And I went off to play a gig that night with my mates from the Narcs, who I was in a band with them at that time called the Rocking Love Gods. And coming back from that gig at like 2 o'clock in the morning, the melody and all the lyrics just came into my head. It was like, I couldn't get home quick enough. It was like, I've got to capture these ideas. And I remember going into my little bed sit, and I didn't want to sing at the top of my voice. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. So I played back what I'd kind of recorded that day, and I sang into my mic, I know I've acted badly, like really, really quietly, so no one would hear. And then I went to bed, went to sleep, woke up the next day, and I listened back, and I thought, wow, that's such a great effect, because the vocals were really quiet and whispery, and so I re-recorded the vocals that way, like really, really quietly, and like I was in the Bee Gees or something, And anyway, I finished it, mixed it, didn't think anything of it. But at that stage, my brother Ian was in Wellington, and he'd set up a studio there with a couple of friends of his, Jim Hall and Steve Robinson and Kelly Blood, and they had this thing called Soundtracks, and they were doing jingles and TV ads, and so I'd started sending demos down to Ian just to get a bit of feedback, some sort of a feedback from him. And I remember he rang me one night and went, holy hell, Nobody Else, that is a hit single. I couldn't hear it, I just thought it was just one of a batch of songs that I'd written. And he said, that song, you've got to get down here, we're going to record it. Not because we were going to release it or anything, but just because, we hadn't really done anything together, apart from him producing an old Crocodiles single that I was involved in called Hello Girl, like in 1981. Well, hello girl, yes I feel okay, but girl, that I got to say I still love you, and the nights get very lonely down this way. So we went down and we, over the course of a weekend, we recorded the basics of Nobody Else. I remember when I did the lead vocal for it, I had no idea how I was supposed to approach it. And I remember Ian just saying to me in the studio, just sing it like you really mean it. And I tried to do that. I tried to convey that feeling that it was really coming from the heart. And I wish I could have bottled that feeling, because it's really hard to do that. But I was so naive that I was able to do it, and I think we really got that lump in the throat thing with that song, and it touched people. And I know a lot of people who have said that, even now when they hear it, it brings a lump to their throat. And I went back to Auckland. I was working as a painter and decorator in those days, and I went back to work. Never thought anything of it. And then, just after Nobody Else was recorded, Ian, under the guise of TEX Pistol, released The Game of Love. Again, just for something to do. And lo and behold, that song went to #1. And all of a sudden, he kind of needed a follow-up. And Nobody Else was just sitting there. So over the course of that next year, he added stuff. I went back down and added some guitars and some backing vocals and some keyboards and that sort of stuff, and he kept working away and working away. He kind of wrote and added this whole solo section to the song, you know, and a year after The Game of Love, a year after we'd recorded Nobody Else initially, we released Nobody Else as TEX Pistol with Rikki Morris, because we weren't quite sure how we were going to do it, but because TEX Pistol had a name and he'd had a #1 single, we thought, well, that's one way of getting to radio, is at least they know who TEX Pistol is. We were lucky that we had the up-and-coming young filmmaker Paul Middleditch do our clip. He'd done the clip for The Game of Love as well, and you know, back in those days, it's hard for people to understand now, but in the late 80s, there was no such thing as New Zealand On Air funding or anything like that. People paid for their own videos. And I remember, you know, Trevor Rikki from Pagan Records, who released The Game of Love and Nobody Else, and a bunch of other brilliant singles around that time and albums. We had a budget of, I think it cost $6,000 to do this video, and Trevor put up half of that, which was very kind of him, and the rest was me and Ian. You know, we kind of split the costs. And I flew down to Wellington, and we went to Avalon, Studio 8, was it called Studio 8? I think that's what it was called, where, you know, Wheel of Fortune and all those great TV shows were filmed, and that's where we shot the video for Nobody Else. It was done on 35mm, which was, you know, which was film basically. So it had that really lovely, you know, grainy look to it. It wasn't so much grainy; it had the depth, didn't it? I'm not much of a film person, but it just looks amazing. Because the clip looked so fantastic, it was sent to the one and only TV show where you could actually get your clip played, and that was Radio with Pictures. Dick Driver was was presenting in those days, and I remember he put the clip on first. It was the first clip off the rank. So most of the industry and musicians and whoever, radio, TV, whoever it was, used to watch Radio with Pictures because it was literally the only thing on TV that you could see new clips. So it had a real impact. I remember that. It had a real impact, and because it was such a great clip for the times and such a different sounding song for the times, it really made an impact. And radio out of Auckland and Wellington started playing it. And I did the rounds of all the record shops and all that sort of stuff, and I knew the guy who ran Sound's CD store, or record store. I don't think CD, yeah, did they? Yeah, CDs were out then, of course they were. Sound's record store in Queen Street, which was the record store. I knew the guy who managed it, a guy called Steve Morris, really neat guy. And he kind of came on board and said, well, you know, I'll stock 500 of these, and because I'm convinced that we're going to sell them. And of course, as soon as he bought in 500, when all the other shops around the country saw that Sounds and Megastore and Queen Street had bought 500 singles, all the other stores started buying in, and it just gained this momentum, you know. And because Steve had bought in 500 singles, it edged into the charts, you know, number 49 or something. Then the next week it was number 41, and then the video was shown and radio started to play it, and over that next week it went from number 41 to number 11. It just leapt into the top 20 and just got this momentum. As Neil Finn would say, all the planets aligned. I remember him saying that once about Don't Dream It's Over. It's like once that snowball effect happens, it's pretty hard to stop it. And you know, once it got into the top 20, then it was getting played on Ready to Roll, which was the top 20 TV show, which was prime time on a Saturday, you know. So it just had this natural kind of snowball effect, and it over the course of the next month it went right through. It was sitting at number 2 for a couple of weeks, I think. And at that stage in my life, I was working for my dad's second wife, Jean, in her gift basket shop in Hunter's Corner. I was helping her manage this gift basket shop in Hunter's Corner here in Auckland. And I remember my dad and Jean and I were having lunch one day at Dialer Gift Basket in Hunter's Corner. And the phone rang, and it was Trevor Rikki, and you know, he said, the song's gone to number 1. So from that moment on, really, life was never the same again. And no one can take it away from me, you know, it's there. I had a number 1 hit, and okay, it might only be 1, but I did it. I did it. It's a great thing. It's like, you know, I liken it to being a footballer and maybe, you know, being in an FA Cup winning side or something, you know. Okay, it might only happen once, but no one can ever take that away from you, you know. It's on the toilet wall. I've got it framed. I've got the, you know, that particular week's chart framed in my toilet, you know. Yes, I've made it.